Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Well, guys, welcome back to my friendly neighborhood pond here. So great to have you joining me again. I was thinking about this verse, Habakkuk 2 verse 3. It says, "For the vision awaits an appointed time. It testifies of the end and does not lie. Though it lingers, wait for it, since it will surely come and will not delay." Actually, I like how the King James renders it. It says, "Though it tarry, wait for it. It will certainly come, it will not tarry." I like that word tarry. You know, though it tarry, wait for it. You know, what is this talking about? It's talking about the end. When is the end? You know, that's kind of the question people have on their minds all the time, right? When is all the stuff going to come to pass, right? We know the Bible talks about the end, you know, the end where God's kingdom comes in its fullness, right? Revelation chapter 21, right? The new heavens, the new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven, and God's saying there's going to be no more death, no more, no more crying, no more pain. It's the world is going to be renewed. That's the hope of reality. You know, the reality is that there is a good future. I mean, I don't know what reality you're living in. A lot of people live in a reality where they're just sitting there watching Netflix, kind of being, I don't know, distracted by that reality in the movie when they believe that their life has no meaning and there's no story. They love the story that they're watching, and they watch it because they want to be in a story, but they are missing the fact that they themselves are in a story, in the master story. Right? So guys, we're in a story, and the story is playing out, but the question is when? Because when we just wake up every morning, right, those vehicles are loud, so hopefully you guys can hear me over the sound of that construction. At least the wind is not too strong today. So guys, that's kind of the pressing question we want to know, right? When will all these things come to pass? And that's exactly what the disciples asked Jesus, remember? Right before his death, basically. Remember, Jesus was on the Mount of Olives, and he was giving them a warning about all that stuff, right? You can read about it in Matthew chapter 24, I think Luke 21, maybe Mark 13 or something like that, right? So Jesus is telling them, look, these are the signs that you're going to see, right? At the end, you're going to see the destruction of the temple, all this kind of stuff. And they ask Jesus the most common sense question. They say, when will all these things come to pass? And he doesn't give them really a straight answer, just like he never really gave his disciples a straight answer. He's always answered with some other thing that was sometimes equally as confusing. But no, I mean, just looking at a nice duck there taking off from the pond. Like, that's just a natural question, right? When are all these things going to come to pass? I love this verse in Habakkuk, so keep this in mind today. Though it tarry, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. And other parts of the Bible, actually multiple times it says, the word of God will never fail. I know that the word of God is true and that every word will come to pass. It's just a matter of time, and it might come to pass more than once, right? Like, that's kind of seems how the Bible works, right? Where there are patterns that repeat. And one of the patterns is that when people worship idols and replace God in their life, they suffer. They get kicked out of the land, right? And so that happened a bunch of times. The Israelites were kicked out, and And now they're back, right? They're back. The country of Israel exists, which is kind of astonishing to think about, actually. To think that when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, I mean, there was no country of Israel there for like 2,000 years. That's kind of crazy. And I don't know, like, you know, biblical prophecy stuff it's veiled. Like, we don't quite know exactly what's going to happen, or when it's going to happen, or which time period it's talking about, right? If you've ever read the prophets, that's the obvious question you have, is like, okay, I'm reading this stuff, which period does this apply to? You know, and very often biblical commentaries, or, you know, those scholars, they'll just apply a certain interpretation on a verse. For example, I was just reading in Daniel chapter, which one is it? Chapter is it where it's talking about the Greek, I don't know, maybe it's chapter, somewhere between chapter 8 and chapter 12, somewhere in there. Or is it 7? Don't quote me on this, guys. But yeah, where it's talking about the Greek, right? The Greek Empire is going to arise, and then it says, and then after that, another kingdom is going to come. And in my NASB Bible, there's a heading that says Rome. So it says after the Greeks, it's talking about Rome. Well, actually, the text doesn't say Rome. The scholars are just saying, well, okay, well, who came after Rome? Or who came after the Greeks? It was Rome, right? But look, we don't know, right? These things, like, how exactly that works geographically, because Rome never really conquered that area where Daniel was seeing that vision, right? Rome never kind of got into that area. The Greeks did, right? The Greeks, Alexander the Great, went all the way out to India, but the Romans never quite did. So is Daniel's vision, was he seeing the kingdoms arising from that area where he was in Babylon, or what was going on? So we don't really know these things. Biblical prophecy is hard, and that's why Jesus says, like, wait and watch, because you don't know. Nobody knows. You know, sometimes I've heard people say, well, you know, God's not going to come back because these things need to happen before he comes back, right? We need this, so we can just, you know, wait, and we're just going to wait and see. Look, that's a completely wrong attitude to have, because Jesus said, watch and wait, expecting it could come at any time, when people least expect it, right? When things start to happen, everybody's going to be expecting it more and more, probably, right? Like, you know, the people, what they say, well, the third temple needs to be built, and, you know, we're going to need to see these shifts in the geopolitical landscape. Well, yeah, but God is the Lord of this world, and he can show up anytime he wants. Really, that's the way I think about it. Like, if a husband goes on a business trip and he says to his wife he's going to come back, he's going to be back in like 2 weeks. Well, he could come back anytime in that 2-week window, right? It's his house, right? He could maybe surprise his wife coming back a week early. He might have forgotten something. I mean, so many reasons. It's his house. He can come back anytime he wants, right? So we shouldn't get into this frame of mind thinking that so many things need to happen before God returns. But there are signs that it's going to delay, right? Just like the parable of the 10 bridesmaids, or the 10 virgins, as some translations call it, right? Is in Matthew chapter 25, where you know, Jesus says the bridegroom was delayed. The bridegroom was delayed in coming. It's interesting. And then he comes at midnight, right? Comes at midnight, and everybody is falling asleep. All the bridesmaids are there. They're 5 wake up, and the 5 wise ones had extra oil in case that event, you know, happened. And the 5 were foolish. 5 of them were foolish, and they didn't have extra oil. They had run out, so they had to go into town to buy oil. But at that point, it was too late, right? And Jesus says, I never knew you. When they come back and they knock, they want to come into the house, into the party. He says, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. Right? That's interesting. So guys, we need to be ready, and though it tarry, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Well, it certainly looks like it's delaying, but we just wait. We wait the appointed time. We wait for the appointed time. It will come. It will come, guys. So just want to encourage myself with those words, and if you're encouraged by those words, that's great. That we just wait. You know, tarrying. It's going to tarry, and we just get used to that. And what are we going to do in that time? Are we going to stay faithful to God, or are we going to go our own way and do our own wickedness and just you know, kind of just become fatalists? You know, whatever happens, God's going to come whenever he's going to come, probably in 1,000 years. Who knows? Who cares? Everything's been the same. My grandparents, my parents, nobody really cares. Well, look, guys, global events are interesting, to say the least. Like, they might not be lining up exactly how we think in the prophets they're supposed to be lining up. Like in Daniel, for example, it talks about the king of the north, the king of the south. Sometimes I listen to that when I go to bed. I'm thinking, I'm trying to imagine how this could play out. What would need to happen with the geopolitical situation in order to kind of make this vision fit? I don't know. I don't know, but it's interesting, and we know that the end will come. It will come, and we are living in a story. We can see certain things playing out that speak to that story being true. So we're in a story that is true. We're not in like some sort of a fantasy world where like maybe atheists would accuse Christians of this, like, oh, you're living in a dream world where something is like prophecy, like biblical prophecy. But one thing I have noticed is that even some atheists or non-religious people, lately they have been talking about the Bible in kind of an interesting, I don't know if they're exactly serious about it, but talking about biblical prophecy, where they're almost like recognizing, hey, the Bible has a lot to say about events that are going to play out in the end times. It's almost more like just kind of an interesting, you know how they use some wording, some of their phrases, like, yeah, it's almost like they're kind of entertaining that possibility a little bit. Well, guys, I mean, like, everybody can choose which reality they kind of want to commit to. Not that changes reality, but we may as well pick the reality that is the best, right? And the best one is that the world will be made new, that death will be destroyed, that the wicked will be cut off, that God will come and be with his people. You know, that's such great news, guys. So just wait. Though it tarry, wait for it. It'll come. So guys, with that, I'll just say goodbye from my friendly neighborhood pond here. God bless you, and have a great day.